All right, today we are in stage 2, the second episode with Harriet. Well, I've got her in the Brisbane office today from Your Sales Co. Today we're going to do a fairly quick episode because don't have a lot of time, but we're going to be talking a lot about, or only about AI in sales and I guess by extension marketing. So, okay, Harriet, let's start with the obvious one when it comes to AI. It's your ChatGPTs, it's your, I guess, the alternative, which I'm sure exists, but I can't think
Copilot,
of it. Thank you very much. God, as a Microsoft shop, what is wrong with me? So yes, let's talk about the pros and cons of that, how you see it used well and where it falls short in the sales space.
Yeah. Used well when it's got content, it's got actual information, context behind what you're doing. When it doesn't work well is when you kind of ask it to do something that you probably similar to what you ask your sales team to do of go build a list. It's going to be pretty average. I ask it to help me with things around, let's use podcasts as an example. Find me 10 podcasts in Australia that are similar to Sell Like You, that have, talk about business, talk about sales. It will give them to me, but then I'll look at half of them, they don't exist anymore. Okay, so let me be more specific. That's had an episode, that's been released in the last 4 weeks. So you have to give it more information, and they say you treat it like you would a person in how much information you need to give it, and don't take it verbatim what it tells you, because the information it gives, although it might give you something that sounds real fancy and a legit report, find the report, read the report, understand it. Otherwise, what you're talking about.
True. So basically, good prompts. So prompt engineering is an actual skill for salespeople, and also just know that it lies, and therefore you need to check, or you look like an idiot. All right. The other thing there, then, when it comes to that particular platform, is the idea that people are sort of defaulting to the very bland kind of format that a lot of the answers are given in, and also a lot of American spelling, which just for some reason just bugs the hell out of me.
But me too.
Yeah, the Z's are out of control. But I guess when it comes to there's a very a templated sort of in summary, and there's that formatting and stuff. So what I see is it's very important to give a very clear voice or a tone type prompt. So everyone needs to basically, whatever company you're working in and whatever role you're in, create a prompt for your own voice based on previous communication, create a prompt for your company voice, if that's what you want to speak to or from, and make sure you've got that saved on like a note that you just cut and paste every time. Like, talk about this, blah, blah, in the tone of blah. That means that you're going to be on message and not sound like it clearly an AI tool.
Extra hack for that, you can actually put it in the back end of ChatGPT.
Oh, nice.
So you go in, edit your settings, and you can also create customizable GPTs if you pay for it. Right. And so I build one which is called my Your Sales Co sales assistant, and then I've got my Sell Like You podcast assistant. Nice. And so within that, it's got paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of information as to how we structure our show notes, how we do this. Although I don't write them and ChatGPT doesn't write them, it does check our structure, and it will also check fact check information. It will give us links back through to the resources or sources of what we're talking about as well.
Nice. And that's similar. We've got our own AI assistant internally as well, Sam. And Sam, where we're looking now, is really going, Sam marketing, Sam engineering, whatever, so I can get really specific on the data set and how it talks, or talks what it talks to. All right, so ChatGPT basically is enabling everyone or Copilot to create a lot of content. That means there's more crap content, and it's easier to get lost in what you present. So I guess tips and tricks to make sure that your content is better than everyone else's and can actually be seen in an absolute avalanche of blogs that are coming out.
I would say make sure it's relevant to your actual audience, because you could go down a whole rabbit hole of like what's trending, and then you'll pull out AI in sales, right? And then it will give you a real generic kind of blog post, and you go copy paste, in it goes, tick, I've created content. But what happens is if people are reading your content and they think it's crap, or they know it's from ChatGPT, the trust starts to waver.
Totally.
And you lose them. They will unsubscribe, they will stop watching, they will just go to ChatGPT and get exactly what it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can show that it's information that's come from you, a lot of the content that I write and that I advise clients to write is around what's actually happening. Let's look at the podcast, topics. This is what's happening today. This wasn't something that we decided 3 months ago we were going to talk about. Yeah. And now it's coming to fruition, and now we've planned and we've understood everything that needs to go on and needs to be included in the conversation. We get very specific about what's going on. We use language that's very specific. And I would always say, write it first. get ChatGPT to refine it, to make it more succinct, to shorten it, to lengthen it, to find sources. Get it to help you in that way. Don't get it to write it for you and then you review it to make sure it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think the art of storytelling is becoming more important. Video is more important than ever. And also, the idea of, it ties into the storytelling, but the idea of, case studies, demos, things that are real and relevant and people can get inspiration from. I would ask everybody to please not create lead magnets that suck, because you'll ruin it for everyone else. Because the more people download stuff, find it's average, they're going to get burned.
We'll stop.
Yeah,
they'll just stop.
That'll ruin it for everyone. All right, I want to talk about intent data, buying intent trackers. So, there's Zoom Info, your Apollo, HubSpot's got stuff now. Pretty much everyone has something that can tie into lead scoring. It can tie into a range of things. How accurate do you find those sort of services? How well are they used and understood? Do you actually have clients that get a lot of value from them?
Yes, a lot of value from understood, kind of. Lots of platforms out there that are doing very similar things to each other. So find something that you like and roll with it. In terms of intent data is for people that are searching something online and it's gathering that information and pushing it back. I'm finding the intent bit of what they're searching and linking it back to the company 50-50 as to being accurate. But what's the harm in that? You're still reaching out. You're still adding value. You're finding somebody that may have clicked on something or maybe searching something, and if they're your ideal client, coming back to what we said on the other episode around identifying and refining that ideal client, then go for it. It's going to give you more. It's going to give you some ideas around what others in their industry are searching as well, if you don't have that data to hand.
That's true.
So I think there's no harm in that. It's not going to burn anything, but I think it comes back to having so much data again. If we look at what we use as a salesperson, just in a business, but let's keep it to salespeople and to marketers, is that they are looking at, we've got LinkedIn, so we've got data on LinkedIn, we've got likes, we've got analytics, we've got clicks, we've got downloads that have turned into messages, downloads that have turned into meeting requests. That's just on LinkedIn. Then we go through our emails. You're sending 1,000 emails every week, if not 20,000 emails every week or every fortnight. Who's clicking on them? Who's going through? Who's downloading? Who's created a profile now that's bigger than it was yesterday? All of that is awesome if you have a trigger to do something with it.
Yeah, fair.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's just loads of information. And you're just like, let's look in the bucket, see what's going on. Oh yeah, that looks nice. I'll take that out. But where do we start? Procrastination kicks in. We spend hours looking and we're not actually doing anything.
So is that where the lead score or the value, I suppose, whether it's 50%, 70% is like a intent probability or whatever, that's where if there's automated nurture campaigns off the back of that, that's basically you need to have some automation there, right? Yeah, okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, trigger points, something that no one has to think about.
Yeah.
So I would always say, look at your email database, look at emails going out, and look at who's been there the longest, who has opened everything, who has clicked on everything, who has downloaded everything, who's registered for every webinar and been to every webinar.
Yeah.
You should be talking to them. Them first, because they're going to be if you're lucky, your top 20%. And it might be 10%, it might be 5%, but go and speak to them, because if they're engaging in everything, and then let's look at LinkedIn and they're commenting, or actually, do you know what? Most people that I engage with don't like or comment on any of my posts, but they tell me everything I've been doing. They're like, I love all your content. I've seen your post. This was great.
And you're like, would it kill you to give me a like?
I'd love kill you to just like something once in a while.
The algorithm needs your engagement. Give me some engagement.
Please like me. That's exactly it. But let's link those two pieces together. Okay, so who's connected with you? Who's following the business page? All of them are sensors that are giving you information back that the sales team don't know about. If you're I'm coming from a marketing lens, that a sales team don't know about or don't know how to engage with, and they're like, cool, they've downloaded all that, but now what do I say?
Okay, so essentially useless in isolation, potentially useful if part of a wider strategy. I think that the most common pushback I get around intent, or the data around intent, is that dynamic IPs mean that it's not clear who the hell this person is, if businesses haven't got a static IP. Second one would be that the cookie tracking nowadays with people opting out, etc., means that even that as a tag isn't particularly. There's just not as much volume, I guess, is the key thing.
Yeah.
The other one is probably the third one, is that the false flags is probably the thing in general. You've touched on the accuracy, I guess, but when it looks like they're a yes, who do you talk to, and how sure are you, and how much time is wasted? I don't know. It's just,
does that really matter though? Like, so let me give you a different sure. scenario. So we're using intent data of somebody that we believe has searched for a term that we're tracking. Okay, we've got a company name, static IP. We've got, let's call it a 50-50 chance. Let's look at our other list over here, which we've built, marketing's built, your sales manager's built, of top clients you want to engage with. They're on that list. But it's a zero. Right now we've got nothing. We don't know. We don't know if they're searching. We don't know anything. So just treat them like a cold prospect. Just treat them like somebody that you would love to work with, that you believe you can have an impact with, and approach them that way. It doesn't need to be based on, is the intent right? Well, the intent's just an idea. Because if we come back to the biggest problem right now in sales teams is they don't know who to prospect. They don't know where to start. They don't know what list to go after. They're given, 100 lists at a time to go through. And that's when I sit with sales teams. I'm like, cool, just show me how you go about your day. And they go into Sales Nav, then they go into the CRM, then they go into Lucia, then they go into Zoom Info, then they go somewhere else. They go to ChatGPT and grab a template. And that's taken 20 minutes. We've not even picked up the phone yet. So let's look at it from a different perspective and say, well, worst case scenario, it was them looking for a fridge on their lunch break. But best case scenario is we ring somebody at the right moment when they've searched something in the last 7 days and it looks like a coincidence, and we approach by adding value.
Yeah. So some scenarios where I thought maybe there'd be good value in that sort of data set would be if you had... You wanted to understand movement in and out of an existing client organization, but they're big organizations. Your key contacts might be 3 or 4 people. If you're able to track that movement based on, and Zoom Info claim to do this, I haven't bought the service, so I can't speak to it from experience, at least not yet, is the idea that they've got like 500,000 people who basically buy into sharing their inbox with them. So all the emails coming and going, all of the signatures are checked. And so there's this huge sample size that's not going off, IP. It's not going off anything other than what the person says they're doing and where they're from. So if that's actually as accurate as it could be, my thinking is that, that would really tell you a lot about your existing clients, where they're from, people moving in and out of roles, seeing that someone had gone that was with you, a client organization, to a new one. You'd be able to set up a nurture campaign for them in their new role, congratulating them on that, sending them a gift, doing this kind of stuff. So I can see a lot of applications, but I don't know how trustworthy the data is and how big the sample size is, but I can see it being useful.
Yeah, I mean, I've not seen it in Zoom Info because I don't use it. I've got a lot of clients that use Zoom Info. I use Lucia, which is the competitor, to Zoom Info in so many words, and that will give you or tell you that they've changed jobs in the last X number of months. Then you can use that then with LinkedIn. But I think the real important of whatever you're using is being really clear as a business who you're going after and who you want to target, because depending on your organization, I know the types of people that are listening, again, they're not volume based. They're not based on needing 3,000 clients, actual companies, not just users, but the actual companies. You want 100, you want 50. And so when we look at it from that perspective, okay, well, how many people do we need to speak to hit that number? And we work backwards. Totally. Because if you say we speak to 1,000 people in a year, okay, awesome. Marketing, sales combined, we can nail that. We can do that really efficiently, really effectively, and we can all have some fun with it.
Yeah.
If we then work backwards and we say, well, look, let's look at Lucia. Let's then spend 30 minutes on LinkedIn. Let's see who's moved. Let's go and look at some job titles. Let's go and look at some companies. We can get a lot of the data without using any tools. We can just go and use LinkedIn. We could just go and use our CRM. We could just pick up the phone and ask the question. That would also be a great approach. But I think the tools are there to add value and to save us time, which they definitely do. But I think it needs to be clear in terms of the strategy level, and then find the right tool to serve the purpose and generate the outcome.
I think that's a great call and probably good one to finish on, because you're right. Like, if it's not volume based, and particularly in B2B, I mean, a good result for us. In fact, a result that will get us budget is simply 3 new clients each month. And 3 new clients at 20% conversion ratio of SQLs means 15 opportunities. Your MQL to SQL ratio will tell you, how many you've got to get in at the top of the funnel. So that's not a huge number. And so you're absolutely right. It's do you over-engineer things? Are you overcomplicating things? What's the most effective way to actually get to the people that matter in the volume that will get you to your goals? So I think you've absolutely nailed that. So ultimately, AI is great, but do you actually need it? That'll depend on your business. That'll depend on exactly who you're trying to reach and where they exist. Like what environments do they inhabit and operate in their role? But because I have to get back down the coast to the Gold Coast, we're going to have to call it there. But yeah, thank you very much for coming in. I would ask, because I didn't ask you this at the end of our first chat, if people want to get in touch, what sort of things should they get in touch with you to discuss, and how is the best way to do that?
Awesome. LinkedIn's probably the best way.
That works.
You can definitely find me over there, Harriet Mellor. And service-wise, we do enablement and training, and then we have our SDR, LDR as a service, which plugs into the marketing, feeding into the sales team as well. So happy to have a chat with anybody that wants to extend this conversation, find out a bit more, or just build a new connection.
Cool. And if anyone didn't know what those acronyms mean, it's basically sales stuff. So if you want any sales stuff or sales help in your organization, reach out to Harriet. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned. And I guess, of course, if you like this and you're not already subscribed on YouTube or following our company page on LinkedIn, please do that. Thank you.